So here's a really unusual meeting for us at YYFM and a live stream. We're joined by Dr. Thania Acaron, who's currently in Argentina and seems to be working her way around most of South America over the last few weeks. Thania, I know I've asked you this loads of times, but because we haven't live streamed before, could you just please, for the benefit of the YYFM audience, just introduce yourself and kind of what you do, please?
Of course. So my name is Thania Acaron. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I'm usually based in Wales. I work at the University of South Wales as a lecturer in arts, health, and well-being. And then in 2020, I founded my own company called The Body Hotel, which is a CIC, community interest company, focused on providing employee well-being services by focusing on movement as a tool for well-being.
Right. Okay. And the Body Hotel is what we've mostly kind of spoken about, previously, and you're also working on a book, or you are working on another book, probably in your case. So tell us can you tell us, just as an intro, before we go into the project, which is coming up closely quite soon, tell us a little bit about the book, if you could.
Sure. I'm writing a book. I'm finishing. It's just the hand-in date is very soon. It's
tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. Thankfully, I'm working on a book called Body Questions. Decision making through movement and the arts. And essentially, it helps people break down a decision into different stages by using some systems that we use in dance movement therapy called movement analysis. So these is the way that we look at movement and that connection between movement behavior and daily life. And we train in this system in dance movement therapy, but what I'm taking is that system and applying it to an everyday person, anybody that wants to engage with movement through activities and is considering a life transition or a key decision, like changing career, or should I pick this house versus another one? Any kind of decision has a movement component. So and I'm working together with an illustrator called Eve Pyra. She's amazing, and she has created all this kind of visual language for the book for people to make it easy to follow. And then I work with a Scottish composer, Ross White, who I've been working with for over 12 years. And he's also composed some original music to go with the activities of the book.
Wow.
We'll need to do a podcast or some kind of thing when it launches, probably at the end of this year.
Okay. So, I mean, it's all, to you, it's obviously is kind of normal stuff, but it's quite unique, and it's quite unusual for the general run-of-the-mill human that is the rest of us. And we'll talk about it again, like you said. But I was a musician myself. I'm kind of interested in how on earth do you write music for that? Wow. Okay. So the book is ongoing, and the kind of the movement and well-being, I suppose, runs through a lot of what you're doing. And of course, with YYFM, as you know, because you've met Stephen Davis from YYFM, or at least you've met him virtually, I think. I think we've met face to face yet. But YYFM is kind of I think we see it as a community well-being platform. So it's not a hospital radio station. I mean, there is no studio, there is no station. It's kind of hospital radio. It's kind of community radio. It's very much not commercial radio. So it's kind of quite unique. And one of the things that we've done, Thania, which is one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you tonight. Well, it took a little bit longer to set up than either of us would have wanted, but there you go. Is the idea of if we look at a community well-being platform, and the fact that YWFM has a whole series of well-being content, and when you share it online, then obviously it goes where it goes. So you're on the other side of the world pretty well, I'm conversing now, but this information happens to come from a place near Caerphilly, Ystrad, but it could actually come from anywhere, right? So on the concept of kind of well-being, and in this case, which is really important, people really like this, I think, that you're focusing on, and the thing we're going to talk about, well-being for people who have a pretty hard job, and actually an incredibly hard job, and came through lockdown and all the rest of it. We're talking about the NHS and we're talking about nurses, so it's very close to home for YYFM, but it's very much in the field of well-being. So, and this is at Velindre Hospital, which is in Cardiff, yeah. So tell us a bit about that, Thania, and also maybe you could come back to other things you've done, because I know you've done previous stuff closer to home, in fact, in the Caerphilly area.
Yeah, so in previous projects, we have partnered up with different NHS Wales health boards. So we've worked with Health Education and Improvement Wales for the past 2 years, and Cumtach Morganic, and have done stuff with Naran Bevan and across Hil Dda. And this project is a smaller scale, but kind of a deeper scale. So we've partnered up with the Arts and Health Coordinator, Sally Thelwell from Velindre NHS Trust. And this is the first year that they run the Arts and Health Coordinator position, which I think is just an incredible, unique vantage point that NHS Wales has, to have Arts and Health Coordinators placed. And as part of her remit, she was very interested in how we can offer the staff in Velindre a different way of processing the very hard jobs. And also, this project has kind of a dual, kind of two parts to it. The second part of it is also that we are going to embed embodiment and using movement, nonverbal communication as a continuing professional development, a CPD offer to the therapies teams. So a staff team that's interested in, we want to build these skills in, that those skills and the activities that we offer at the Body Hotel have, you can use them for yourself. It's almost like, you got to practice what you preach sort of thing. But then you can, by you going through that experience, you can then tailor it to how you can use that with patients, with clients, participants, with anybody that you work with. Some people, that's outside the remit of what we do with people. We could do this with my family member, with my colleague, with my work colleague. But so we have that kind of dual offer. One is employee well-being, which will be spaces of respite, which is what we've done before. And then the CPD part, which will be kind of part of something that we're piloting with Velindre. And then we're going to, hopefully, that's the aim of the company, to then roll it out in different health boards across Wales, and even maybe nationally or internationally.
So, we've talked about movement before. I've got a guitar behind me, but obviously I can't move. I'll probably move when I'm on stage, but, not in the way you might want me to move. I don't know. But in terms of, some of these stuff, I'm just thinking when you were talking there, like, for example, physio, like a physio team. So it is sort of on the paradigm of movement, isn't it? Because they're trying to help people move. So I don't know. Is that something? Is that kind of an interesting one where maybe is a case like they're working on movement with patients?
Yeah.
Is there sort of like a developing an awareness and a consciousness of things, and more knowingly, I suppose, putting this stuff into practice?
We're going to be working across the allied health professions. So it'll be people, and Sally's still reaching out to different teams. So there still could be teams.
Could be any team
that could be interested in that.
Yeah.
But we've worked, occupational therapy, physio teams, nursing teams, psychology, psychotherapy, arts therapies teams. So it's the wide gamut, because, you always say, I know you, Steve, you always say every single show you go, but I don't move, but we're using nonverbal communication all the time. We're syncing up rhythms so that we can work together. We're compromising different ways, different preferences, because I might want to have a preference to move very quickly and want things now. You might have a preference of taking a bit more of your time, you know. And this is how we negotiate relationships all the time. The thing is, we're not consciously aware of it. So by practicing, because this is the thing, movement practice is an ongoing practice, but it's also a practice of spatial awareness, of understanding how much space you're taking up, for example, in a staff team, or with colleagues, or in decisions, or with tasks, right? So it's that self-awareness, because everything really is a negotiation in movement. And there's different, you know, I go a little bit more into that in the book, but there's negotiations in terms of force, for example. Some people might want to have, you know, people go, oh, I'm more chill, more light. I like a light approach. Diplomacy and culture comes into, you know, every culture has its movement preferences. We just never talk about it, right? It's not, hopefully it becomes part of our everyday conversation. And a lot of the workshops that I've done with business, for example, in the business clinic within USW and outside other organizations, they're now understanding how key it becomes. Because then if I understand where you're coming from and what my preferences are, as a team, we can use that to our advantage. We'll allocate tasks based on these preferences. We'll be able to know, for example, how best to work towards something, right? So movement is just not, it's just culturally, we think of movement and we think about, so you think you can dance and Strictly Come Dancing. And that's a different kettle of fish. It's just completely different. What I'm looking at here in terms of embodied skills is that we, in dance movement psychotherapy, it is a postgraduate level profession, and we've been around since the 50s. It's just that other things maybe had, like mindfulness or yoga, have had quite more of a national, international world platform than, for example, dance movement psychotherapy. But a lot of trauma research, a lot of the even the stress at work, you know, employee well-being research is now saying the first indicators are in the body, right? We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Particularly in burnout, particularly in compassion fatigue. So within dance movement psychotherapy and, you know, and the focus on the body, we can look at how to mitigate them, these things that are happening, right? If we know these are the factors, we know those are the indicators, we just have to listen a bit closely, more closely to our body, right? The problem is that, so, you know, the way we are conditioned as humans, particularly in certain cultural contexts, because this might not be the cultural context in Puerto Rico and other Latin American countries, or countries where there's a more of a resurgence of dance and movement as part of daily culture, right? But I'm talking about the let's just say the UK context, for example. There's a lot of disregard of the body as a tool. And I just feel like, well, not only me, like my whole field stands for what happens if we listen? Right? What happens when we listen? What happens if we don't wait until we're injured, exhausted, depleted, or have any kind of health condition, physical health condition, to listen? Right? And what if we use that tool to listen to others? So those are the two key things that we work through in the Body Hotel, in the workshops. First, my first order of business is always demystifying dance movement for people. Because for some people, that's usually the same, you know, oh, that's great. I want to do more physical activity. I want to get in touch, you know, touch more with my body. For other people, like you said, like yourself, it's a bit trickier, right? Because we're not used to do that within that thing. But give you an instrument, and if I told you don't move, you wouldn't be able to play.
That's a very good point.
You want to be able to play.
Yeah.
Or, you see that with the drummers. We see that with, any
Yeah.
kind of person. We see that when people are listening to music and on the bus, on public transport. We are
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
embodied beings, right? So that's the first thing of like going to somebody, and it's across gender, across culture, across age, across ability and disability, right? So for us, and for dance with psychotherapists, it's our way of connecting life stress, movement, behavior, and looking at your past and providing psychotherapeutic support. What I'm doing in terms of the movement for well-being workshops and the CPD workshops is to use some of those skills, that knowledge, that wisdom really, and then translate this into something practical that you can either use for yourself or you can use for other people. So that's kind of like, I think, in the gist of what you're asking. That's
Okay.
kind of where we're at.
So I know. I think you did some work at the Grange. I think I'm right in saying that, in the Caerphilly area. Yeah,
Right.
and which is obviously connected to Ysbyty Ystrad Fawr, which is where YYFM comes from. And I had the feeling that I wasn't there, but I had the feeling that it was really well received. And going what you were saying earlier about, I can't remember how you phrased it now, but to do with like stress fatigue, if you think about nursing staff and what they have to go through on a daily basis,
Yeah.
And again, the COVID lockdown is a great example of how pressurized that can be. What kind of feedback did you have, from medical staff and nursing staff who took part in that, and how did that, I hope, reinforce what you're trying to achieve and give you like a reason for doing it, like a rationale? Does it all come together that way?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful experience, and it relied on the openness of, Catherine Oliver, for example, who's the nursing manager at the Grange, and her team was organizing some activities for well-being week, and they took over. This was part of our previous program called Moving Self-Compassion from the Body Hotel. Originally, we had a different setup in a way because we were doing stuff online. And then we always have these 3-hour Saturday community open to everyone kind of workshops anyway. But here, there was a different opportunity. So we came in and I did some very short sessions. Usually a staff well-being session will run anything from 1 to 3 hours. Ideally, I would like to have more like of a day or even a weekend, but usually because of time constraints, 2 hours is ideal. But interestingly enough, Catherine calls me up the same day and goes, logistics, can you do them shorter? Can you do can you do like an hour here and an hour here, and we'll have different staff, right? Or so we ran that. So essentially, she coordinated cover for all the nurses in the ICU to be able to come and attend. So it was a logistics amazingness. I don't know how she did it, right? And the nurses came in with fatigue. Compassion fatigue is quite a new term, I gotta say, because usually it falls within the umbrella of burnout, but it is particularly, there's new research around compassion fatigue because it affects people in the caring professions in a particular way. Okay.
Yeah.
I can hear your keyboard.
No, I'm just doing something for us while you're talking. I'm just realizing we should share that while we're talking, Yeah.
Compassion fatigue has a lot of research on that, so the nurses came in with sore feet, sore backs. One of them was like, I can't even move my my shoulder, and one of them came in and she's like, could we do less time? Right. because I'm really busy and blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's try this. So for Wellbeing Week, I was more focused on what they were bringing. So this is where my skills as a dance woman therapist come into play, because I have some therapeutic goals that I want to work on. Like, for example, support, like working on support, asking and receiving support is quite a big theme that comes up with nursing and caring professions. Different ways of reconnecting, grounding throughout the day. How do we create spaces? How to protect spaces for ourselves? So all those different things. I have a wealth of different activities and interventions, because I've been doing this for 2005, 2006, so a little bit while. But the framing of it is not in the therapy sense, but more in that kind of well-being sense. So afterwards, the well-being event, we were looking at more staff cohesion, engaging in play. There's a lot of laughter and that communal thing, and how do then we use each other within the team as resources, and what kind of support people really wanted to receive, right, or offer. Mm-hmm. So we worked on those themes, and that was really impactful and powerful. And looking at, like, for example, protective factors, what's protecting you right now, those kind of things. And then we were invited back to do shorter, like little 20-minute ones, to allow less stress in terms of covering other people and more people to come through the doors. And so that was really, that changed my whole outlook on the program, because you see kind of the immediate effects. So people were like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. Or somebody who had told me that person that couldn't move their shoulder was doing all this stuff, kind of raising her hands up and engaging without even realizing that doesn't hurt anymore. Because that's another important bit, particularly in the caring professions, that we take on our clients, our participants' bodies. We take on a lot of their stress. We absorb a lot of their issues. We take it home with us sometimes. And that also has difficult, challenging consequences for your body.
Yes.
Right? We just don't, again, it's not a public knowledge, right? But there's new research, for example, on what's called somatic countertransference and somatic transference, which is, again, what you take on in people's bodies. Okay. I had several, when I used to work in the Desmond psychotherapy program up in Scotland, I had supervisees that, worked, for example, in prisons and forensic settings, and they took on that whole feeling in their body of being locked up, right? Or feeling that their space was limited, for example. Or one of my other students was working in a chronic pain unit, and she started coming back home and feeling that pain, right? So
wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. And that's happened in my sessions regardless, even online. Even online. Online that's happened,
Yeah. Well, I've seen a couple of your sessions online. As you know, events that you've done. I want to keep it just a few minutes more, because I'm thinking, like you said earlier, about the 20-minute thing. I think in terms of people getting the most out of it, we keep it fairly, so they don't have to work their way through. There's so much good stuff that is in there. So to keep it fairly short, but informative. And obviously we're heading towards the event, Valindra in Cardiff, and you talked earlier to me about the palliative care team, and so it's really quite a powerful thing. What's your perception as a Puerto Rican who's traveled around the UK a fair bit? Spent a lot of time here now, briefly-ish, but I'm sure you got plenty to say in terms of the NHS, what it stands for, and how kind of special it is, really, and and British people are very, very proud of it. And having met the staff, I wonder if you had any comments on the NHS and its staff, really, and what you do.
Wow, Steve. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a very big question. I feel like I come from a system from Puerto Rico where we don't have that privilege of walking through the hospital and being accepted without an economic cost. I come
Yep.
from a culture where if you were freelance, you had to decide whether your broken hand was worth 5 grand and whether you have it, right? So I'm enormously privileged to have been in the UK for 13 years and know that that's at my reach. Obviously, the NHS needs support and funds to keep growing. It needs to pay its doctors properly, and it needs to, keep its nurses happy because they're the angels of every single ward. NHS Wales and their arts and health programs are very unique, and I treasure that aspect, that the fact that they've seen the value that the arts bring, both for their end users or service users, but also for their staff. So the fact that there's separate funding to support that staff is incredible. So it is, despite what people might say about, other aspects of the NHS, but I think what becomes difficult, like anything, is having that buy-in from the staff, buy-in from their managers, buy-in, from leadership that allows people that time to be able to recuperate within their workday and not always be on the staff's own time. Obviously, our workshops. Our first workshop is in July. We're gonna run the community workshops run every 4 to 5 weeks when we start the program. So we run from July to December. We want to keep those open, and we do keep them on a Saturday because getting away for 3 hours is really difficult during a workday. But we are invited, the Body Hotel has been invited to any staff CPD, any big meeting that somebody wants to do something different. We've done even solicitors. I did the shared
dancing solicitors.
I had 100 solicitors and surveyors in that conference.
Yeah.
And as part of that day conference, and they were there, they were engaged, right? It started off the day really positively. And I've seen this time and time again. This is why I keep doing what I do. I see it because I know it works. Despite the resistance, despite people not knowing what it is, despite when somebody decides to take that step forward and be outside their comfort zone, my job is to make it accessible and make it safe. People who want to come in and try something different, I still get emails from people from 7 years ago from my time in Scotland going, actually, I still use some of these tools, right? Or we see, and other people in staff teams going, I have never engaged with my colleagues this way. I feel like I know them better. I feel like we can get through stuff even more. So in the end, it's trusting that if you want to put yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone, it might not be for everyone, but it's a tool that you can use, and it's a tool that has research, and it's a tool that has a trajectory. And these programs offer that opportunity to people, whether they want to take it, and they can come to a community workshop like the open ones on the Saturdays, or they can also request through the arts and health coordinator to have that part of their team meeting. So that's going to be the offer that we have this year. It changes every year.
Okay.
And we also have we have this video series online for people who want to engage on their own time in the privacy of their own home, 5-6 minutes, build on your movement practice, reconnect. It's only 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then you can move on from your day. You can start the day, be in the middle of something, or decompress after a busy day.
Okay, so we're right towards the end here. So what will the book be called? What's the title of the book?
The book, well, keep coming back to the book. See, it's called Body Questions: Decision Making Through Movement and the Arts. Okay,
Body Questions.
The questions that your body asks in terms of decisions.
Cool.
But that we will have to wait a little bit more for that.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
now,
I know you're
people
not
can
here, but
follow us at the Body Hotel. We're on every single social media platform. They can look for the videos. It's called Body Concierge on YouTube, and we are also on Public Health Wales and Cultural Kutch, which is the Arts Council Wales platform, as one of the movement strategies. So we're everywhere.
okay.
But we're happy to go into any kind of staff CPD, any kind of different type of event, and provide a connection to the body.
Okay, and the thing in Velindre in Cardiff, if people want to get involved and staff get involved in that'll be shared and communicated through their kind of teams or the management, etc.
Yeah, and but the first Saturday will be the 13th of July,
Okay.
and that can be through us. So the open events, because some of the events in Velindre are going to be just for the staff teams. I do think that there's scope for collaborations between teams with other health boards. So Sally Thill will, if you put Arts and Health Coordinator Velindre on Google or anywhere, she's the person. She's an amazing advocate for the arts and health settings. So she can get you in touch. Yeah.
So I just want to ask you one more thing. This is quite an interesting one for you, as objectively as you can, I suppose. Why would you say, in a few words, briefly, why would you suggest that staff come to one of your events? What would they be missing out on? What's special about it? Why should they come?
Well, I think if there's a staff team, I think that they would miss out on an opportunity to play, to laugh, to enjoy, and engaging with their colleagues in a completely different way. And it's a place to air out any kind of tensions, and to learn how to collaborate from using creative media. So using movement, or we use a little bit of drawing. We do use reflection and other arts as well. So I think that's the lovely thing about these workshops. It is about introducing something into your repertoire that then you can apply to different settings. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And because it's movement, and because it's something that maybe not a lot of people talk about, it'll be something unique.
Yeah.
To them. Or if they already have a movement practice, yoga, sports, anything, they can use those, because that's happened as well, use those kind of tools to apply to their ongoing movement practice, or any physical activity that they do.
Okay, so again, the Body Hotel, look that up. Body Questions coming soon. And Dr. Thania Acaron, thank you very, very much. And good luck with everything. And I'll hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.